Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. I have a fairly deep and contemplative question for you. It occurred to me that if you go back in history and find the important speakers, the important thinkers, the important writers, the important philosophers, you will find that, for example, Karl Marx, Immanuel Kant, and Fichte, put those three together and you can probably put 100 million deaths, violent, sad, unjust deaths, on their shoulders. So people today, alive as we speak, have millions of people in the future resting on their shoulders. It could go one way or the other. We could have bloody warfare, pardon me, or we can have a more peaceful world based on trade and selfishness. Do we want a world based on selfless conquest for the nation, or do we want a world based on selfish production for the individual? And it's up to us. It was up to the people in the past who handed us our century, and it's up to us what we're going to hand to the next people. So sometimes when friends and neighbors and people I'm talking to, they give me an attitude and say like, well, what's your big deal? Who says you're so important that you need to try to do anything about the problems in the world? And my attitude is, excuse me, millions of people rest on my shoulders. They don't rest on yours, especially not if you haven't chosen to have them do so. There's my point. That you have to choose to put millions of people on your shoulders. I'm putting millions of people on my shoulders that I say I'm going to possibly do something to help save, and hopefully they won't actually come to rest on my shoulders. I'm sticking my head up above a crowd and I'm, out heightened by several other people who are much taller. Let's just put the analogy that way. Somehow they're not going to land on my shoulders, but let's just say they do. It's possible because of the work I'm doing and because of the school that I'm running. But what's odd about it is people act like they can't do anything about the world. Sure, they don't like the fact that socialism seems to be on the rise and religion seems to be on the rise and capitalism and freedom are under attack. They don't like it. But what is little old me going to do about it, right? Well, little old you could save millions of people's lives if you would just stand up and take responsibility. I was just delivering a tirade one night, and my brother said, "What the hell do you want me to do, go out and make speeches and stuff?" And it kind of stopped me cold. I didn't think about my reply till the next day. I realized what my reply should have been. It should have been something like, yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing a goddamn speech from you once in a while. I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind having a few people stand up and say something about what's going on in the world. Wouldn't mind it at all. So yeah, actually I do want you to stand up and make speeches. I want you to write letters to the editor. And a lot of people are too busy. They're too busy with their farm or whatever, They're too busy with their job selling magazine subscriptions. They're too busy getting ahead at Taco Bell. Fine. Fine. Let the lives rest on my shoulders. That's the whole point here. That it's the people who choose to have the lives, the millions of lives rest on their shoulders. They choose it consciously by doing things that they see as important. And they might not ever get the shoulders to rest on their lives. I hope that I don't, because I'm not. I think there are other people out there who are working harder than I am at doing the things that they see as important. And first of all, I wouldn't be surprised if they were the ones who end up making a bigger difference in history. But second of all, I really do hope that my efforts, even though it's the entire devotion of my life is to this school I'm running, I really do hope that my efforts are a drop in the bucket. I hope they aren't the hinge that history swings on. Ayn Rand sort of knew that hers was the hinge history was going to swing on. I hope mine aren't that grandiose. I hope that this school, being just a carbon copy of Van Damme's school in California, I hope that it will be outshadowed. I hope there will be a lot of other schools that produce better students with teachers that were better informed than I am. But knowing history, I can't just accept that as what's going to happen. I'm afraid that's not going to happen. And what are you doing to prevent what disasters you see that might come in the future? Or are you spending your nights playing PlayStation? Don't get me wrong, I play a lot of video games, but they're usually the better sort, with longer plots. And I'm always listening to a speech by Victor Davis Hanson, or by Stephen Wolfram, or something. Always. Re-listening to them. You're bored, you listen to everything twice, you're going to go watch TV. Wrong. Listen to it 6 times before you're done. Christopher Hitchens said you never read the same book 2 times in a row. The second time through it, you always find something new. He's gone through some books a dozen times because he's a teacher at the new school in Manhattan, in New York. And he says you never go through the same book twice. And that's true. You never actually read the same book twice or listen to the same documentary twice. There's always something you didn't notice, some sort of new integration. Always happens. So, if you choose to be one of those who stands up and says, I don't know how the world's going to go, but I'm afraid it might not go the way I like it to, so I'm going to try to do what I can. If you are one of those people, you may end up with millions of lives on your shoulders. And get this, nobody has millions of lives on their shoulders to the part of saving them who didn't try, who didn't make a choice, who didn't do something about something, who didn't try to make a difference and do something right and correct. In other words, if you save people, if the millions of lives on your shoulders are a positive thing, it was because of a choice you made. It was because of a choice that philosopher or writer or historian or politician made. But there can be millions of lives rest on your shoulders in a bad way just by inaction, just by allowing things that you see going on. Presidents and so on who could have done something about this or that. Writers or intellectuals who ended up mildly endorsing some form of evil that they were writing against, and then they say, but I can see its uses here and there, not taking a moral stand against it. You can end up with millions of lives on your shoulders, but if you want to have them there in a positive way, it takes a positive decision, and it takes action. And that's my epiphany for the day.